Welcome to the Apex Leaders Podcast with me, Clayton Rose. In every episode, we speak to phenomenal leaders that will share wisdom to help us grow and become great leaders. Let's get into today's episode. All right, Kelly, thank you so much for being with us today on the very first episode of the Apex Leader Podcast. And so we are so happy to have you with us today. And thank you for agreeing just to come and chat to us today. Let's jump straight into the conversation. How have you been, firstly? How have you been?
To be honest with you, I've been good. I've been great. Tired. And I think everybody feels that way. But I've been good for the most part. Thank you.
Good. I'm good. Enjoyed some of your content that you posted on Instagram regarding your recent visit to Zanzibar.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, it was amazing. I went as a work trip because outside of doing counseling, I am a photographer as well. So even though I was working, it was amazing just being on the island and not needing to deal with Cape Town weather. I've been so miserable since being back. Having all of this raining days. It was two extremes because I came from sunshine and literally tropical weather to coming back to full-on Cape Town winter, floods and storms. I'm still adjusting, to be honest with you.
You're already booking your ticket back?
I'm not even joking. I literally researched flights in this week. I'm really tempted to book for very soon.
Cool. Tell me, how do you balance between having multiple companies and businesses and your practice that you have, and then obviously your personal life as well?
Honestly, some days I just have to rely on faith, in all honesty. I found myself in a very unique position quite early on. I have multiple interests, and I grew up always seeing people around me having one lane. You have to pick one career, one interest in order to build your and earn an income from it. And for me personally, I always had multiple interests. Like, I'm creative and an artist by heart, and that's when our photography comes in. But I also do have a side of me and a part of me that loves working with people and finds great passion working with people. So that's where I started the practice over and above my photography company. And nowadays, I find myself, I was listening to a podcast recently, and one of the speakers in the podcast had mentioned finding instead of trying to create a work-life balance, try to create a work-life harmony. And that's kind of a principle that I apply with my life. Even though I'm doing both businesses full-time at the moment now, try to find harmony in my day and a routine that works for me, where I see about 4 to 5 clients in terms of therapy clients in a day. In the evenings, I'll do like my photography work. So for the most part, I really try my best to find a harmony. There are going to be some days, especially when with my mental health care practice, I have a lot of clients at the moment now that's in crisis period, and they need a lot more support than what is typical. Just because of burnout, and I suppose that's also what we have to talk about today. It's those days that make it quite difficult for me to find sort of balance and flow that works for me. But yeah, I'm kind of winging it, to be honest with you.
I can imagine. Are there any tools that helps you manage your time? Are there any tools that you use?
I try to set up systems in my life as far as possible. So what it looks like in a practical level is I time block a lot of my days. So, for example, with my therapy clients, instead of me managing my own schedule, I have clients book their own appointments and they set it up on an automated system, so that it helps to save me time from logistics and needing to set up appointment bookings with clients. The same when it comes to my photography business. So AI has been amazing. I've been leveraging off of some of the tools to help me manage my time a lot more efficiently, because with both companies, I am running it as a solo entrepreneur. So time is such a big factor that I don't always have the luxury of having. But that's where my tools, like my software and my systems, really do help me just to manage my time a lot better.
Yeah, I know that you do come from a corporate background before starting your own practice. How's that adjustment been for you?
I don't think I can ever go back to corporate again, to be honest with you. I pray that God does not send me back into corporate world. But what I enjoy most about being my own boss at the moment now is the time flexibility. As much as there's a lot more tasks in terms of admin and logistics that go into running your own business, having the control over my time and the full control over my time, that works better for me for where I am in my life. Because just like you mentioned, I love traveling. I love seeing the world and exploring. And had I been in corporate, I would need to first apply for leave before being able to do that. Whereas now I have the flexibility to be able to still run my businesses while being on the go and seeing the world. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
been an
Yeah.
adjustment, but I prefer self-employed life over anything.
The reason why I asked because I noticed that you started your practice in COVID 2020,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
that's correct.
And so that on its own was a challenge.
Mm.
And so how was that first couple of months, just starting off and finding the reason why I'm asking is just maybe to give a leader or business person or a young person watching us today that wants to maybe endeavor in starting their own business but doesn't know really some of the challenges,
Yeah.
that goes with starting up. So I just wanted to find out about you, like that first few months, especially in the pandemic.
Yes.
How was that for you?
So this is an interesting story. Before I can answer starting the practice, I have to give some background story and context to the photography. I started the photography company when I was 16, turning 17 years old. So I was a teenager in school. And at the time, the high school that I had attended, so we're looking for a photographer, just a skill that I didn't know how to do at the time. Learned it on YouTube. And because they gave me the opportunity, I then decided to monetize it and try to make some sort of an income on the side while still doing my schoolwork. I wanted to study photography, but I come from the household where they believe it's not a true career. So my parents made a deal with me.
Yeah.
You need to study something that's more of a professional nature. Although photography I see now is definitely a very professional skill. But my parents had made a deal with me. You can do your photography as long as you obtain a degree in something else for stability. Did that,
Yeah.
decided to study psychology. While I was studying psychology, I still ran my photography business. And what was great about it at the time, I didn't have the same level of responsibility that I do have now. Being a student,
Yeah.
I didn't have as much expenses. So I could experiment and take risks with the photography company. Did that for a few years and then COVID hit. It was going really well, really successful, but then COVID hit. And with COVID, my photography company took a knock because events weren't happening. It was a luxury expense. People couldn't go outside to do shoots because of the pandemic and its limitations.
Yeah.
And although at that point I had experience working in different corporate settings with my therapy, I wasn't doing it full time. But that's where I saw it as I can either take this knock for the photography company and be sad about it and just sit in limbo mode, or I can see it and this crisis period as an opportunity to diversify my
Yeah.
income source. So I worked with a business coach that actually helped me set up the foundations of the practice. And we were chatting about what are some of my skills that I do have experience in. And he pointed out you have a whole counseling degree that you weren't using. And at the
Yeah.
time, with the pandemic hitting, everybody took a knock when it came to the mental health. Everyone was struggling. And I thought it was a perfect opportunity for me to be able to provide support. So in that case, it worked out in my favor because there was a need. And I was able to have a skill and build a business around a need that was already existing. So for me, it was actually such a blessing to start the practice at the time that I did because of what
Yeah.
everybody globally needed support with. So it was a natural transition for me. I also had the skills of the photography business to be able to set up the business. So that wasn't too hard and too tricky, which
Wow.
was amazing and it worked in my favor.
Yeah.
But what I didn't anticipate was as things started opening up again with COVID and the pandemic easing a bit, both businesses doing, which is a blessing, but can also be a curse at times. I never anticipated both businesses doing well at the same time. So this
Yeah.
past 2 years have been trying to find my feet a little bit about how do I find a balance and the flow between doing full-time wedding photography and full-time practice work. But now it feels like I've got a nice flow that works for me.
Yeah. I think that's important, like, because sometimes as a young business owner
Yeah.
and like having multiple businesses and you have your own personal life going on and there's a lot of other stuff happening,
Mm.
like to find that balance, I think a lot of us lack. And that's why we start seeing maybe some signs of fatigue
Yeah.
and burnout coming because there's no balance. It's like, I think this hustle mentality that people have, like, I have to go 24/7,
Yes.
to make money. But in the meantime, I'm doing an injustice to myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm not able to give like 100% at all because after a while, that first 2 weeks, or maybe a month or 2 months,
Mm.
you're going hard, late nights, early mornings, you're going.
Yes.
But sooner or later, you like start seeing some of those like fatigue and burnout that people
Yes.
have, and that whether it's ministry or in corporate. And so maybe what we want to talk about, like, what are some of those signs of fatigue in
in people that you can see, especially leaders. I think this is what I speak about, like leaders, because like for leaders, we have the ability to, put on a mask, we can show up, we can do, but in another area of our lives, we're suffering, or our health, or our mental health, or we just start getting sick all the time. We don't know what's happening, but it's because we have no balance.
Exactly.
And so maybe speak to some of that signs that we should look out for as leaders of fatigue, or maybe early burnout even.
Yeah. I think you mentioned such a valid point that with leaders, you're able to put on the mask, you're able to show up for the people that you're leading because it feels like you have to. And in all fairness, it is part of the responsibility of being a leader. But the minute that mask comes off and you go home and you're in your safe space around your people, your personal relationships, that's often where I find leaders suffer the most. In the personal relationships, whether it's within a marriage, whether it's with your siblings, your family, your parents, I find, especially my work with a lot of my clients, that's where they get hit the most. And some of the signs that you can start to notice that often goes overlooked is feeling irritable. When you start to be moody for no reason and you start snapping at your loved ones, your family, the people closest to you, sometimes even your congregation and people that you're working with, even in your business, that's always the first indicator that, hey, burnout is right here. There's some sort of dysregulation that's going on where you don't feel like your best self. There's a term in psychology that's called your window of tolerance. That's where you are most regulated, most calm, and in the best space to be able to tolerate any external circumstances that comes your way. But the minute that starts to get a little bit of a shaky ground, it signs like being tired beyond what's normal, even after getting your full night's sleep. It starts to look like being moody, being agitated, being snappy, feeling out of control, feeling angry for no reason, even just in terms of sadness and just having difficulty concentrating. Your mental health does play a big impact even in how you are productive and show up. There was a quote I saw on Instagram the other day, and I think I shared it to my story. The quote said, if you are putting in the work, you're hustling, you're waking up early, you are going to sleep late at night, but you're not taking care of yourself, you're hustling backwards. And I thought it resonated so much because it really pointed out the importance of taking care of our well-being, even in the work, even in the responsibilities. Because you also can't take away from the fact that as leaders, it's a calling. It's a different level of sacrifice. It's a different level of discipline that you have to have because of the responsibility that's placed on you. But it doesn't mean that you need to neglect your own needs. And I think that's where we sometimes get it wrong. Feels like in order to lead other people, it means I have to sacrifice my well-being. Yeah.
And as a business owners as well, even in ministry, there's nobody else that's going to show up. You have to be the one that shows up. And I think this is a bit of a challenge that you have. Like you have to balance that because you can't send somebody else because you're the owner, you're the boss or whatever, or you're the pastor or the leader. You have to deal with certain things. You can't ask somebody else to do. And I think that taxing or that demand is so taxing on people, and they don't even realize that they just basically on autopilot.
Exactly.
I've been in a space where I had that just snapping on people for no reason, not publicly, but like in the home. My children would get the better brunt of it. And they did nothing wrong. Just the fact that I was stressed in one area of work or business. And so they had to unfortunately be the ones that were the recipients of my frustration and my stress and my tiredness. And we've been there. But I think if you want to have longevity in leadership, you have to have balance.
Yes, absolutely.
Because if you're not going to have that balance, you're not going to find that you're going to go further. You can go hard now, but you're not going to go far.
Yes.
It's like running a marathon.
Yes.
You can run your heart out that first kilometer and look good in front of the pack. That's fine. But sooner or later, you'll see everybody start passing you because you just burnt out.
Exactly.
And so I think we don't pace ourselves well enough. We're going to have a situation where we have leaders emerging or current leaders now that are going hard, going good. Everything's going well for them. But a year or two down the line, they're not able to finish because they haven't balanced or paced themselves.
Excellent.
And so I wanted to ask you, but like, what are some of the things that people can do, especially leaders, to kind of find that balance and avoid feeling the burnout or the fatigue kicking in and causing them not to be as effective as they should be?
It may sound very obvious and apparent, but it's really not. When I say it in my work, got to get to know yourself. got to have a level of self-awareness. Because just like you mentioned now, as leaders, whether it's leaders of a company, of a congregation or a household, you're constantly thinking about your flock. You're constantly thinking about what do the people around me need. And we tend to get, and I see it for myself in my work that I do with my clients too. We hyper aware about external factors, what do other people need, but not making that intentional time to actually get to know where you're at when you're at your best self, when you're not at your best self. Making
Yeah.
time and room for that self-awareness is just as important. So I think it starts with getting to know what works best for you. And sometimes, especially on a lot of self-development books and podcasts and content that we consume, you always hear about the importance of just taking care, being the best person that you can be, being your best self and investing in getting better, getting better, getting better. But you got to first know what you need to start it with.
Yeah.
For example, you may find that you can operate and go through life on 5 hours of sleep and it works for you. And that's wellness for you.
Yeah.
For me, however, I need my 8 hours of sleep. Otherwise, I'm not a person and I can't function. But it doesn't mean that your way is right or wrong. And it doesn't mean that my way is right or wrong. We just have different thresholds of what works for our bodies and what our needs are. So it starts with self-awareness. And it's something that
Yeah.
I, in my personal life, also had to learn the hard way. You had mentioned and spoken about burnout.
Yeah.
So when you study psychology, in your final year, so my honors year, you have to balance between doing 720 hours of community service, where you're working and you're gaining experience, while doing the normal lectures and your courses, and I did 5 modules per semester. And you also have to do a thesis. I thought,
Yeah.
being the superstar that I like to think that I am sometimes, that I could do all of that while running my photography business. By April of that year, I was burnt out. And I
Sure.
had to last up until February of the next year. And by April, I had an emotional and mental breakdown where I needed to seek and take care of my own mental health and wellness. And it made me realize the importance of self-care efforts and taking care of your well-being over time, exactly as you pointed out and mentioned. Not just a once-off thing, but it's in your
Yeah.
daily little habits, your daily routine. So I don't even know if I answered the
Yeah.
question.
No, you did. It actually leads me to another question, like where I also watch a lot of podcasts and
Mm.
on social media, like clips of people, especially CEOs and businessmen, on their day in their life. They'll be like, I wake up at 4 a.m. and then I hit the gym and then I do this and I do that. And like, it sounds so good, and it might work for them, like you said. But if you're not an early riser, you're going to be miserable by 10 o'clock in the morning if you're waking up at 4 o'clock. Even though your body can get used to a routine,
Mm.
but like you were saying, not everything that works for somebody else can work for you.
Exactly.
But there might be something in their routine or in their life that could help you be a better leader or better businessman. But I know for a fact, like 4 a.m.
Yeah, no.
Nah, no, it's a bit crazy, But like, what I wanted to ask you, Kelly, was, do you think there's a negative side to social media in terms of people's mental health, well, especially leaders as well? The pressure of seeing people on a certain level, even though social media can be a very fake place,
Oh,
I
yeah.
do know that.
Yeah.
Like you only see the highlights, you don't see the bad side of it. But people seeing that and the perception of everything's going well and everything's going good, and there's people just successful,
Yeah.
even though they may be failing in their private lives or in their other areas of their lives. I think it adds a bit of pressure on one, that you see this and you almost feel like you're falling behind because you haven't reached a certain level.
Mhm.
And so maybe you could share some of your experience with social media and how it maybe adds to mental health challenges that people have.
Yeah, I do think that social media within itself, it's not a bad thing, but it can produce a very negative experience when comparison starts to creep in. So when you're consuming on social media, and it's something that I just recently became increasingly aware of, we spend so much time consuming as opposed to creating when it comes to social media, and the type of content that you're consuming also has an impact on how you think, how you feel, and your mental well-being. So I do think that there's an element of it that can breed comparison in a very unhealthy and negative way. But that's where it boils down to also just being fully aware and intentional about what it is that you're consuming. Personally, for me, I had to go
Yeah.
through a social media cleanse a year or two ago, where I was very intentional about unfollowing accounts that didn't leave me feeling great about myself. Where I found myself being caught up in patterns or thought patterns, at least, of comparison, looking at other people's lives and finding myself feeling feelings of insecurity, not because of them and what they were posting, but because of my own internal issues, made me realize that that's not healthy content for me to be able to consume. So I got very intentional about unfollowing or muting accounts that didn't leave me feeling great, and intentionally following accounts that left me feeling inspired, left me feeling any sort of way that was great or positive emotions as opposed to negative. So I do think it's just important to be aware of how social media and the type of content that you're consuming actually impacts you and lands for you, because it can be powerful, can be very empowering,
Yeah.
but it can also be quite destructive if you're not conscious of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I maybe want to just zoom into the self-awareness thing.
Yeah.
Is there ways people can become more self-aware? Is it skills that they can use to become more self-aware?
Definitely. So journaling is a great tool that you can use to become increasingly aware of your thoughts and your thought patterns and your thought life. It can also help you to increase awareness of your feelings and your emotional range and capacity and the different things that trigger you and trigger different emotions. But something that I know many people struggle with is also getting feedback from the people around you. So actually asking the people around you that you have trusting relationships and safe relationships with the feedback about how they experience it and behavior patterns or things that they do. Feedback can be such a great tool, but it does also require a level of humility to be able to listen and listen to correction from a place of love. So yeah, I think that is a very underrated tool and skill to have. It's just learning to be open-minded and willing to receive correction. Yeah.
Awesome. In COVID, there was a phenomenon that started, especially amongst millennials and like younger people, young adults,
Yeah.
called quiet quitting. And so I'm wondering, are there still signs of that taking place amongst your clients that you're seeing or the actions that you're having with people? Or is there new phenomena that we're seeing now rise up amongst young adults, especially leaders and those in corporate and in ministry?
I definitely do still see a little bit of that quiet quitting culture that does happen. But you know what I've also seen is the detrimental side and effects of it. And I don't think we've spoken about it or we speak about it enough. Also, walking away from things and cancel culture without confronting certain issues can be quite detrimental, because confrontation is a very healthy, or conflict at least, is a very healthy and normal part of life. But I do see that the more that we've spoken about mental health and wellness and raised awareness about these things, especially since COVID, the better people have become at enforcing boundaries and taking care of their mental health. And especially when challenges arise, instead of just walking away and promoting cancel culture, we're actually fostering a lot of healthy conversations. So it's something that I'm seeing the more we speak about it on public platforms, whether it's from a church pulpit or whether it is on social media, the better equipped people become at actually handling conflict and issues that do arise instead of just walking away. Because that's not always the healthiest way to deal with conflict and things that come.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing that the conversations globally about mental health and wellness, and the more we promote it, the better people are taking care of themselves and promoting self-care.
Yeah. You know what I love about our generation, and the younger ones. This is other thing that's taking place now in the world. I think it's called quiet vacationing.
Sure.
I think it's quiet vacation. So basically, what it is that you haven't applied for leave, you haven't put in your days off, but you're working from Zanzibar.
Yeah.
Working remotely, and you're working, and the CEOs of companies are now like finding an issue with that because they feel almost like their staff is not productive, or they're kind of conning the business.
Yes.
But I think what our generation is seeing now is that we have to prioritize like time off, even not technically on time off,
Yes.
but we have to take time off for our own mental health and our own physical health even.
Yeah.
Because what I started seeing was that it is a mental health issue. Sometimes it displays physically.
Yes.
You know, people getting sick, or they're just like in a lot of pain physically. And so I see a lot of that type of trends happening now as well.
Yeah.
It was so funny for me when I was watching this news, the thing on the news, where they were saying that young people are just taking their laptops with them to wherever they're going,
Love that.
to the countryside, to the beach, and just logging on and having their Teams meetings and their Zoom calls from an island.
Love it.
And so I personally don't see issue with that.
Yes.
If you still are in your work, being productive, still meeting your deadlines,
Yeah.
then there shouldn't be a problem with that. I don't think a space necessarily determines your productivity. But
Absolutely.
it was very interesting for me to see that, like,
Yes.
and it's so creative actually if you think about it. That somebody told himself, I'm not going to sit here, I'm going to go to that island.
Yes.
I'm going to log in from there, there should be Wi-Fi, and I'm still going to do my work. I'm not going to put in leave because I can work remotely.
Yes.
And then I think people have adapted to not being in a corporate setting in terms of an office space or office bound, but just being there, having that freedom of working from home or from any other place, coffee shop if they have to.
Yeah.
And you see it actually now, like you just take a drive anyway. Coffee shops are full of people with headphones on and their laptops, and they're doing work.
Yes.
And so maybe what are some of the things? I know we spoke about this earlier, but maybe exercise and those type of things. How important is that with your mental health? I see you do take walks as well. Um,
So
and so yeah, speak about that a little bit.
I think it's so important. I've seen the benefits in my own life. Like I am somebody that's always been my entire life. I've hated running. I don't understand why
Yeah.
we need to run. Always stressing us. But when I
Yeah.
actually did my trip to Zanzibar, it was a big part of the culture. Not only necessarily running, but spending every moment outdoors in the open, in nature. And it's something that I adapted while I was there. And it made me realize how much of a difference it made on my mental health and my mental well-being and just my clarity of my thought patterns and everything being outside in nature. So it's something that I've tried to maintain here. The one big snack that I, as a female, have very big difficulty, and it really does frustrate me about South Africa, is the safety issue. It's not
Yeah.
always the safest. Whereas in some other countries, like what I experienced with Zanzibar, it was so safe for me to be able to just go anywhere that I wanted to go for a walk, take a run, whereas I can't do the same thing here. But that's a conversation for another day. I do, however, see in terms of exercise that it's something that is so important. Whenever clients come to me and they tell me that they're struggling with burnout, the first three pillars that I ask them how they are doing in is sleep. What is the quality of your sleep like? What is the quality of your eating like? And your appetite, and lastly, movement. Without those three pillars, we can't manage any sort of stress well at all. We can have all the fancy techniques and things in the world, but if you are not doing taking care of your sleep, taking care of your body in terms of movement, and taking care of what you're eating and consuming, it's naturally going to have an impact and effect on the stress levels. So exercise helps to also just release any sort of built up tension, any sort of stress. It's a great stress management tool. Because you're also getting to exert all of the energy that you would use in worrying and actually get to exert it elsewhere in a healthy way. So I think it's such a big important thing. And what we don't realize is chronic conditions such as heart conditions, blood pressure issues, all of that comes from a place of definitely genetics, but also stress levels in our lifestyles. So if you have a lifetime of not necessarily prioritizing movement and moving your body, naturally, when you're older, you're going to struggle with body aches and pains. You're going to struggle with chronic illnesses and sicknesses. So I think it's such a big importance of managing our stress levels, especially for leaders.
And also just blocking out that time for the exercise. And I completely understand what you were saying about like a female, because the sun is down, you can't actually go take your run now or walk. I think that's why run clubs have become so popular.
Yes.
Because it's a group effort and there's like safety for females in that numbers.
Yeah.
And so I 100% I actually started running again now.
Oh, nice.
After a very long time. And I even scheduled to run a 10K race in October. I think. It's almost like a goal that I set myself.
Yes.
And force myself now to stick to my practice.
Yes.
Because you can't go to the meetings and like my personal life is business, family, my son's at school with his sports game, and then I have meetings with ministry and all those other things.
Yeah.
So practically my whole day filled up.
Yeah.
And so if I don't set time aside, I'm gonna just ignore it, and then if I look again, it's like 2-3 weeks later, and then I haven't done. But then I can actually see my sleep is affected. I'm just feeling like lethargic all the time, even though I slept a full night. And then it leads to that irritations and that snappy again.
Yes.
And so it's a weird cycle.
Yes.
It's a very weird cycle. But I think it's important that as leaders, we almost don't just focus on that type of, what's the word I'm looking for? The importance basically of physical activity outside of church, outside of business, where you just take a walk or even a run just to clear your mind. Now, a lot of CEOs does this as well.
Yeah.
Some of them jump on the motorbikes, take a drive for an hour just to clear their head, process thoughts and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for us that maybe don't have the luxury of having a motorbike now, a walk for 30 minutes, and helps so much. I just did it the other day and I was thinking about certain things and actually got kind of clarity on what I need to do about a certain thing, because just that walk. But I'm sitting in front of a computer, I get distracted. Okay, let me Google this, let me do this, let me do that. And it's weird how much clarity you get for just walking even physically. And so, no, I really like that. Kelly, I know we covered a lot in this conversation now, but is there any keys or tips you want to give to leaders about maintaining a good mental health and mental health state and just being a better leader overall?
The number one thing, if you take anything away from this conversation, it's to pay attention to your internal world just as much as you pay attention to your external world and all the things that you need to do externally. Because exactly as you mentioned now, by going on your walks, you actually recognize and see how much your mind needed it, how much your body needed it, and it also just improves the quality of your relationships, because now you're not taking things out of your family and those that aren't you so intensely. So it's to really just pay attention to your internal world. And there's an app that I've been promoting so much to my clients lately because it's something that I found personally works for myself and it works for a lot of my clients. It's called How We Feel. And it's basically like a mood tracking app that you can just download onto your phone, ask you a very simple question every single day. How are you feeling? What's your mood? What's your emotion? Is there anything that's affecting it? You can just track it every single day. It takes you less than 2 minutes to insert that data and that information. But why I think it's something that's so helpful, it's a prompt to make you and increase your self-awareness, to make you actually think about how are you feeling, how are you doing? Because when people ask us on an everyday basis like how's things going, you just quick to say, I'm fine. Exactly, I'm good. But you don't actually think about how are you feeling. If you're feeling frustrated, we also have to have safety to say, I'm frustrated today or I'm miserable today. Personally, I'm miserable with this rainy weather. I hate it so much. But we got to make more room for our honest emotions, our honest internal experiences before even communicating it to one another. It's important to just be aware of what's happening for yourself internally. Because truthfully, even the people in your life around you, as well-meaning as they may be or well-intending that they may be, they cannot climb into your internal world and fix things for you. It's only you that can do that. It's only you that's responsible for what happens internally. So I think it's really important, especially if you're leading people, leading teams, leading household. You've got to take care of what's happening inside in your internal world. Otherwise, those needs just end up getting neglected and nobody else can actually fulfill those needs for you and on your behalf. So how we feel on the app.
How we feel.
Yes.
How about you download it at the end of this conversation?
Please.
I was listening to somebody one day, was a senior leader, and he said that we cannot pour into others from an empty cup.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. Like so many leaders are just, going with the flow and, like I said, autopilot.
Yeah.
That they are pouring into others from an empty cup. They have no time for their own personal well-being. They don't have time really to study or to pray from a Christian perspective. Or they don't have time to prepare anything. They just, going on what is normal to them.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, the more they're pouring out of the empty cup, the more damage they're doing to themselves, not just the people that they're leading.
Exactly.
And so I think it's very important, for leaders that's watching us today to find something that will refill the cup again.
Yes.
Whatever that might be.
Exactly.
Whether it's time with your family, putting your phone away, disconnecting from social media, playing a round of golf, taking a run, whatever it may be, whatever falls at. And before I know we're going to close the conversation very soon, but before I met my wife, we just met many years ago. I used to date myself, where I would go to like the movies and just go watch a movie alone for my own, not for anything. I just needed time for myself, and that's the way I would like fill my cup again. And so leaders have to find that thing that that's away from your normal day-to-day activities, so that you do have this refilling and this energizing and freshness that you bring again to leadership, whatever it may be. I don't know. But you have to find what works for you, like we said earlier.
Absolutely.
So, Kelly, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
It's actually
I really appreciate it. You shared some very key, and I hope that you're not gonna say no the next time we call you, maybe for a part 2 conversation.
You know exactly where to find me.
Yeah, talking about finding you,
Yeah.
how can the viewers find you and connect with you if they want to reach out to you for your practice, for your photography, for your travel business,
Yeah.
and whatever else is laying ahead? Is there a way that they can reach out to you?
For sure. So I'm quite active on social media. You can find me on my personal and travel account, which is Scary Small One, or my photography company, which is called Small One Photography, both on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as on my website. You can go check out and view my work there. And then my therapy business is called Therapy with Kelly. You can find it on TikTok, Instagram, as well as on my website too. So yeah, I'm trying to stay as active as what I can on the digital world because we're here now at this point.
And how is your response time, Kelly?
I try to keep it like within 10, 15 minutes, but it's not always possible if I'm sitting with clients.
Yeah, no, of course. But we're not going to wait 4 days.
Yeah. No, not 4 days. No.
Okay, okay. You know, some people just blue tick you and when they realize, hey, I need to respond, and they only respond.
No,
Maybe it's a week later.
I try to not be that person as far as possible. Sometimes in my personal life, not the greatest, but business wise, I'm there.
Okay, cool. No, but thank you, and Kelly, from the bottom of our hearts, and we hope to see you soon. And like I said, people can reach out to you when they need advice from you or want to just engage you on any of your businesses. I know they're going to be blessed by you. Thank you, Kelly, from the bottom of our hearts. And for the first episode, I think that was really awesome.
It was. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. That was Kelly Jacobs, and I hope you were blessed by today's session. See you next time.